Yeah, hanging.
He even offered, he's like, I know a lot of people at Alabama. You're really good at all this film stuff. I could make a quick call. You know how much money those guys make at Alabama? I can get you up there. You'd have a position tomorrow. I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it, I guess.
I think I want to be a priest. I don't know.
I was like, I thought this was going to be a good meeting. Now he's yelling at me.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Native Soil. This is episode 28, and I welcome one of my very best friends, Father Pat Arensberg, onto the cast. Welcome to Native Soil.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. I was trying to explain to him earlier the logic of what we're doing here at Native Soil. He was having a hard time comprehending it. Mm-hmm. This is season 1. This is our third series.
Right.
We had Protestants. We had converts. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about coaches. And this is episode 2 of series 3 of season 1.
So you've talked about coaches already.
So last week I introduced the topic.
Okay.
And one of the things I told people was that the best sport that exists on our native soil is football.
Okay.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. I guess I have to say that.
Okay, good. But you did have a bit of a foray with soccer. When we were studying in Rome. We were in seminary together for 4 years over in Rome. You're from a big football family, but you kind of got seduced by the beautiful game, did you not?
I did, yes. And I'm glad you put it that way because that's how it was received when I came back to this native soil.
Right.
My dad growing up, I think he was just kind of a classic American, doesn't really know much about soccer, didn't really like it. And he would have all of these like philosophical arguments as to why someone who's American would not like soccer. He would call it communist. You can't use your hands. It like oppressed people and it set like the goalie. Anyway, he would go on. And this is the environment I grew up in, of not so much like you have to love football above everything else. It's more like you just can't like soccer. And so when I went over to Italy, it's just everything is
part
about
of the air
soccer.
You breathe.
Yeah, I mean, everything is. And I've never been in an environment like that. So I didn't really know. I played soccer, like 7th grade at CYO.
At PE or something.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the extent I had. I played like one season because St. Mary's wanted to have a soccer team because I'd never had one before. And it didn't last very long in the 7th and 8th grade. But that was the only experience I ever had. And then I went over to Italy. And then it's just like, whoa, this game is awesome. And then we actually we got that Xbox that Father Jeff Starkovich.
That's right.
And we started playing FIFA a lot.
That's right.
And so you had to find a soccer team, and that just kind of brought me in. I picked this team in England called Everton, who's actually number 1 on the table right now.
To all you Everton fans.
For all you Everton fans, up the Toffees. So once that happened, I went to an Everton game, and
sold you.
Yeah, I'm in love.
That's amazing. Let's back up a little bit. And can you talk about just a little bit, where are you from? Who are you from? Tell a little about just your background. How'd you wind up in Mobile?
Sure. I was originally born in Hawaii. That's where I'm from. I spent a couple years there. My mom was born in Hawaii. My dad moved there when he was in like 7th or 8th grade. My grandfather they had been living in Kansas City, and he had a teaching and coaching opportunity to go to Hawaii at a Catholic school on Maui called St. Anthony. So he moved his family over there. He met my mom at St. Anthony. She went to a different high school, rival public school, high school. It's like a McGill-Murphy situation.
Yeah, it's a real West Side Story.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And so they got together. We were living in Hawaii. My dad was a paramedic. He was kind of made his way through the company, got to the level where he was kind of the vice president of the company, which required him to travel a lot. So we moved a lot when we were kids. We lived in Spokane, Washington. We moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, back to Hawaii. We went to San Francisco. And then while we were living in San Francisco, his company got sold. And they told him he could either move back to the island, to Maui, or he can go look for another career. And he had always wanted to be a teacher and a coach like his dad was. And so my uncle, Pat, was actually in Mobile studying to be a seminarian for a time. And so my grandparents had moved to Mobile. Well, Uncle Pat ends up discerning out, moves back still lives in Mobile.
Right.
And my grandparents are here. And so my dad decides that, hey, why don't we move there? Uncle Pat tells him about McGill-Toolen. He gets a job there teaching religion, coaching football. And so we've been here ever since. That was back in 94.
Was that, as a kid, was that kind of a crazy thought? It's like, why are we moving to Mobile? Like, Dad's not even a teacher or coach,
Yeah.
and we're leaving everything for him to go be a coach in Mobile, Alabama. Like, we've been in Hawaii, we've been in California, now we're going to Alabama so Dad can coach.
Yeah, it was different. So I was going into 5th grade at the time, so you kind of know what's going on, but
right.
you know,
don't, yeah.
you kind of don't, but you kind of do. And I remember we had been to Mobile before to visit my grandparents. It was a lot of fun for us as kids, but my parents would drive from San Francisco to Mobile. It's like a 3-day journey in this big gray van, all
With
7
like
of us.
7 kids.
Yeah, with 7 kids. It's crazy. So anyway, we would go there every summer, and we would spend 2-3 weeks there.
Right.
And we kind of hated Mobile because you get out, you leave San Francisco, which is like 70 degrees and overcast like all the time. And you open that door to the van, and immediately all that humidity of the like June, July Mobile air hits you. And you're just like, how do they live like this? And so
so miserable.
Yeah, it was. And so when we found out that we were moving there, the one thing that attracted us was all the sports that they had. Because they apparently had like a football team and a basketball team and all this soccer, all this other stuff.
Right.
And we were big sports fans. So that for 5th grade me, that was very like, oh yeah, I could go finally play football or something like that, which we never could. In San Francisco, they had baseball and basketball and track. And those were kind of the big 3 things. But it seemed like there was going to be a lot of cool stuff in Mobile. But we definitely were not looking forward to just dealing with the temperature and stuff.
So y'all got here to Mobile. Your dad feels called to coach, and y'all all are at St. Mary's.
That's right. Yeah.
So St. Mary's is the parish you grew up in.
Yeah.
You all go to McGill. Mm-hmm. And then your brother, I feel like coaching, there's like a coaching bug in your family. So obviously your granddad had did it, and that kind of inspired your dad. Mm-hmm. And then your brother Thomas is coaching. Mm-hmm. He's the offensive coordinator for McGill right now.
That's right.
You coached a little bit. What is it about coaching that was so attractive, you think, to your family?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think, we like to tell people what to do. I think we have the right answers.
It's a strong Arensberg trait.
So, I think there's something, I don't know, maybe it comes from my grandfather. He was very involved in coaching, and he just kind of passed that on to my dad and my uncle too. My Uncle Pat coached at McGill for a long time before he went into his other job. I think just the ability to kind of mold and work with people and to be a part of the game that we love is very attractive. It's a way to stay connected to that. So I think there's a lot of different factors that come into it, both with family history, but also just kind of the love of the game, and to be able to pass that love and stuff to others, I think is very attractive, especially in our family. It always has been.
All right, run me down what sports. So you came to the land of sports, which we talked about our last episode, Alabama. That's one thing we got going for us is Sports Central. Which sports did you play growing up?
So we did, I did soccer at least for a year. We did basketball. And then when I got to high school, we did football, track. We'd still play intramural basketball. I think that was pretty much it. And then when we got to college, I just do whatever intramural was going on. I would do the intramural.
Who would you say was the most influential coach you had growing up? Was there somebody that really kind of made an impression on you, or would you say kind of was formative to you as a young man?
Yeah. There's been a lot of guys. I think almost every coach that I've had in one way or another has formed me to the person that I'm in, or even just coaches that I'm around or got to be around. One guy that really stands out in 7th grade we had at St. Mary's our basketball coach, Briley Shara of happy memory. He just passed away a couple months ago, but he's a very intense kind of guy, and he was young when he started coaching. I didn't realize how young he was. He just seemed like an adult, but he would have been like college age or something like that. But the thing that impressed me is because up until that time, coaches had always been some kind of dad, right? It was like someone's dad, and he didn't really know what was going on. He just kind of liked being around his kid, and he would do these drills that you'd always do, and he's just kind of like the dad coach. But when Briley came in, he was like this guy who just wanted to coach, and he would like run us through specific drills, and he had like expectations for us, and he would like really yell at us and he'd expect things of us. I don't know. I just remember when he came in at 7th grade, Pat Arensberg was thinking like, who is this guy and why does he care so much about St. Mary's basketball and how well we're doing? But just like seeing him give of himself in that way was really cool to see. So he always made a big impression on my life. Try to keep up with him as best I could. I would say also in high school, a lot of my different football coaches were like that. There was Coach Nemeth came in right as I was going into sophomore year. And so for him to he redid the program, and the way that he did things in a professional manner, talked about effort was his big thing. He brought a lot of guys with him too. There's this other guy named Coach Jensen. He's like a real Christian guy. He wasn't Catholic, but he's real Christian, and he really lived out his faith, and it was cool to see a coach doing that that's not my dad or my uncle.
Right.
To see like this is actually a way of life for coaches. It was really inspirational.
Yeah, that's one thing that strikes me what you're saying is that there's a man that comes along who gives you permission to care. I feel like in a lot of young men's life, somebody kind of has to show you that, like this guy who's coaching you basketball. He comes in and shows like it's worth putting in effort. That was kind of the Nema thing. And this basketball coach, it's worth caring. It's worth trying to do something in an excellent way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it takes a coach or somebody in your life to show you, kind of model that.
Right. Yeah, and they don't sacrifice any of those, like what you would identify as like masculine traits, right? So they're lifting in the weight room. They know all this football knowledge. Like they know all of these things that you as a young man want to know, but at the same time, they're like showing you this other way of like caring, pouring your heart out, being vulnerable at times. Coach Nemeth was always very vulnerable. He'd cry in front of us probably more than we'd want him to, but just like having that vulnerability, I don't know, it's just kind of neat to see in that particular environment, which isn't always like that.
Yeah, kind of integrating. A lot of times from our moms or some of the women, they kind of teach you how to feel things or how to care. Like you see them pouring themselves out in your family or in church. But to be able to integrate that, like you said, in kind of your own masculine life and, okay, this is football, but also we're trying to become like better people. We're trying to care. We're trying to like share our hearts with each other.
Right.
And somehow that all kind of gelled for you in that space.
Yeah, all those guys were huge in like being a good person off the court, off the field, like doing what you're supposed to do, responsibility-wise, classroom-wise, whatever it might be.
Right.
They were more than just like your coach. They were, like very invested in helping you grow up and be the person you're meant to.
Walk me through, or walk us through your transition from you were at Springhill studying, but also coaching at McGill, kind of helping out at McGill.
Right. And
then you feel called to go into seminary.
Yeah.
Just walk us through a little bit. What was that transition like? And I always like the story with Coach Severies, but did those have bearing on one another? Or?
They did, yeah. I mean, to clear the record, I wasn't like a coach. I like to think of myself as it was like a glorified equipment manager, I guess you would say. They didn't have it back in the day. Coach Sav was kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of that. I was like a game coordinator and, I don't know, quality management kind of thing. So I would like break down film. I would be on the computer anyway. I wasn't like on the field coaching. However,
you were around the coaches.
I was around the coaches.
The coaches knew your name.
They
at least your first
me coach.
Name.
Yeah, they called me coach.
See, people called you coach.
And I was in coaches' meetings, and I would break down film and just like a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
But you weren't like
I wasn't
defensive backs coach.
Yeah, right. I wasn't like telling people to run a sprint or something like that. Yeah.
You were getting them water and showing them film.
Yeah, for the most part. I was like making sure the film worked. I was a big nerd. Anyway, so I started off right when it was like my sophomore year in college, and Coach Savarese had come in and he had asked me. I was already helping out with the guy, Coach Griffin, before that, just doing whatever he needed. But Coach Sav wanted to make it like in a position where I would like do all this film work and all this other stuff. So anyway, so I was doing that while at the same time going to Springhill. And it was good, like just kind of having that discipline, having that rigor. Coach Savarese is also a big Catholic guy, so he would, he was always asking me about what I was going to do with my life.
Right.
And making sure that I was going to mass and dressing nicely and just doing, just like coaches do, just coaching me up. And so I'd always had this tug of seminary, or at least going into seminary. The priesthood had always been attracted to me, even since like 4th, 5th grade. It had been something that was on my heart. I just never really pulled the trigger. Well, as my college career was ending, you kind of have to decide what you're going to do for your life, with your life. And I had this strong desire to at least check seminary out. And so I was going into my senior year, I had just finished my senior year at Springhill. And that spring semester, I had called Archbishop Lipscomb and told him, I'd like to go to seminary, and, we started the process. So anyway, I had to go meet with Coach Sav to tell him I would be leaving this position.
Your coaching position.
My coaching position to go into seminary, which I figured he'd be cool with because,
Big
he's
Catholic,
Catholic.
he loves it. Yeah.
So it's hilarious. So I go in there and I was like, yeah, Coach, so this is actually my last year. I'm going to go into seminary. I think I want to be a priest. He's like shaking his head. He's like, really? You think that's what you want to do? You think you're ready for that? I was like, I don't know, but that's why I go to seminary. He's like, well, I don't know about this. Are you doing this just because your daddy's so Catholic? You doing this because your dad wants you to? You could tell me. You could tell Coach Sav. I was like, no, this is what I really, I authentically want to do this.
Just dressing you down.
Yeah, he's like, well, I mean, I have a lot of questions for you. I think it was around like a holy day of obligation.
Yeah.
So he's like, today's a holy, yesterday or today was a holy day of obligation. Have you been to mass? Like, do you even pray every day? Like, he's just asking me all of these questions.
No.
And I was a good, I went to mass on Sundays, and if I knew it was a holy day, which I usually did because my dad would tell us, but like I would go. So it wasn't like I was not practicing, but I wouldn't say I was all in the way that he expected me to be all in.
Are you going to daily mass? Are you praying every day?
It's like,
what's your devotional life? What kind of service are you doing?
He was asking all of these very piercing questions. And then he even got to the point of like, well, what do you, I saw you at church the other day when we went for team mass, and you were dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops. Like, you think that's the way you're going to be? Like, he was like on me. And I was just like, I don't know. You're saying all these things.
Oh.
Should I really go into seminary? So I leave that meeting, and it's not like he cleans it up. He just like leaves it.
Yeah, hanging.
He even offered, he's like, I know a lot of people at Alabama. You're really good at all this film stuff. I could make a quick call. You know how much money those guys make at Alabama? I can get you up there. You'd have a position tomorrow. I was like, I don't know. Let me think about it, I guess.
I think I want to be a priest. I don't know.
I was like, I thought this was going to be a good meeting. Now he's yelling at me. Anyway, so I left that meeting, and I was just wrecked. I'm just sitting there.
So sad.
But then he was right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't like the things that I was doing.
You kind of needed to hear it.
Yeah, I needed to hear it.
Yeah.
So that really got me more into like what I should be doing.
Right. Let's take this seriously.
Yeah, let's really authentically think this out.
And I think that builds really in a neat way on what you were saying, some of those other coaches earlier in your life, like showing you the value of effort, showing you the value of caring, showing you the value of kind of being vulnerable. But now, like, as you're thinking about your vocation, God puts this other coach in your life who's like, you need to take this seriously.
Right.
This is heavyweight kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's great. So I'm thinking when we were in seminary, we had this brainchild. I remember we were real big on trying to convince our rector to get Catholic, like NFL coaches or college coaches, like Nick Sabans of the world or whoever else in the NFL, to come and like talk to us in our formation.
Right.
And we had all these thoughts about coaching being like a paradigm for priesthood, and particularly as far as giving us a model of like, how do we reach out to people and encourage them and exhort them to a higher standard? Can you remember some of our genius insights? And particularly as we think about, I guess why I'm bringing this up is you've had these rich experiences in your family and with other coaches. Now we're both priests. How does that translate into kind of what we do as priests, or just what any Christian would try to do in instilling the faith?
Yeah, that was a great meeting. It was kind of hilarious because look at us. It was kind of, when I think back of it, I think of that scene from Step Brothers where they go for that job interview and they're like dressed in tuxedos and stuff. I feel like that's how we were, because we like dressed in our best clothes.
We really did.
We had our folders and stuff and
notes.
Much more organized than we've ever been in our life. So, yeah, I remember one of the big things that we wanted, because Monsignor Cecchio had an in with like the Eagles or something like that.
Yeah, he had been their chaplain or something.
And so we thought, oh, this is so great, because coaches somehow convince young men to give up like a life of partying, of freedom, of whatever, to like commit and show discipline and all of these things. And I remember one of the big things we wanted was to talk to college coaches who recruit well, to see what they're saying in a living room that gets kids to buy into their program. Because I figured we could use some of those tools or principles to get people like into our churches. Like, it's the same kind of idea. You're asking these people to give up a lot to fly all the way from California to Alabama, or from New York to Texas, to like come to a whole different thing that's going to be challenging for them. And yet they sign up in droves. And like, you don't just get the worst. You like go out and actively seek the best people.
And I remember it's jogging my memory too of one thing that's fascinating about college football, for example. I mean, not a whole lot is expected of men in this day and age. It's kind of like a crisis of masculinity. And I know 4 p.m. just released their fourth man, which kind of looks into masculinity, whatever. Just segue, shout out. Yeah. But yeah, in this day and age, like, so little is expected of young men. It's like they're just expected to be like aloof, not care, not insightful, not emotional, doing drugs, drinking, sex, like whatever. It's just like very low bar. But when it comes to like a college football player, like if a starting quarterback for a college football team gets found like smoking pot or doing something unvirtuous, it's like huge deal. Like huge scandal. And I remember us saying, how is it in this space that so much can be expected of young men? And outside of that, it can be so little. And so I think we were kind of like, how can we make this more of, how can we use some of the insights of like coaching in the best sense to kind of raise the standard and exhort men, but really everybody, to kind of like be the best they can be. And
I remember we really wanted coaches to give a talk on just like accountability and how you like create a culture of accountability and create a culture of like excellence, kind of, that you call people to sacrifice and they're willing to do it, but then you also like keep people accountable, and it just sort of builds on each other. I think in football programs in particular, but in most sports programs, the winning ones, the ones that are doing their job well, there's always this kind of accountability. It's not just the head coach.
It's not the coaches, but the players buy in.
The players, the assistant coaches, equipment man, like everyone is bought in. And so we really wanted to get some insight into how you create that culture. Like, does it start, I mean, obviously it starts with you, but do you get like 2-3 guys to help you? Or is it like you just hold everyone to a stand, So I remember there's all that kind of stuff of like how you make a program. It was basically like how you make a program successful, with recruiting, accountability, bar raising, excellence. So
the tragic part of this whole tale is it didn't happen.
Not even close.
But it did give us something to dream about and talk about on a podcast several years later.
It did, yeah.
So that's good. What would you say? Okay, you're a priest. We have many Catholic schools, CYO programs. There's a lot of coaches out there. What do you think what would you like to see someone who's like coaching your parishioners in CYO or coaching your kids at McGill? What, as a priest, what would you hope to see those coaches do in collaboration with what you're trying to do back at the parish?
Yeah, I think there's a lot they can do. I think primarily if they live their faith,
right,
that's going to be a huge help for me. Because if these kids and these families and these other dads see, Coach John out there who's putting in time and effort and obviously loves the game, they see him on Saturday morning, and then they also see him on Sunday morning.
Right.
Like, that's a big deal. And they realize that you can have both. Like, you can be a guy who cares a lot about CYO football and the success of your third grade football team.
Right.
And you can also be a guy that's heavily invested in his parish and loves Christ even more than that Saturday morning. So I think just by them living their faith and being seen around the parish, as well as, not just on Saturday morning, but on Sunday morning, I think that would be a huge help, just that living witness. Secondly, just in the way they relate to kids, I mentioned Briley, like how much of an impact a guy like that had. He was passionate, he was caring, he held you to a standard, but it wasn't about him. It was never about him. And you knew it was never about him. He wanted you guys, he wanted us to be great and us to have success. And so just kind of allowing that to be seen in your coaching style, in the way that you do it. I come from coaches. You can coach hard. I'm not against coaching hard, but what's at the center of that? Like, is it for you so that you can talk about how many wins that your fourth grade basketball team got? Or is it so that these kids can learn to love a game that you love as well and can, have this outlet to have fun and be with their friends and things like that. And also to be taught all these lifelong lessons that they'll carry. So I think if they do those kinds of things and be just a good model in both life, like this world, but also in their faith life, I think that would be a huge help.
Yeah, I think every kid has like a sixth sense, and it's kind of the BS meter. Mm-hmm. You kind of can sniff out what people are really about.
Right.
Like you said, like, okay, there's the yelling, the screaming, the drilling, but you kind of know. I think it's just human intuition. Right. It's just like a spiritual gift God gives, but you just kind of know what's the underlying thrust.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see somebody that you really respect and that has like a mastery over a certain thing, and you kind of know at the end of the day, like, this person's about like the love of God, this person's about family, this person's about you being the best you can be, it just raises the bar. It just makes you want that, you know? So I know I ran into one coach, he coaches CYO, and he was saying just before every game, he says, kids, what are we playing? Why are we playing today? And they say, and he has them like trained to say, for the glory of God. I'm like, dang, like,
he gets it.
He gets it, like he kind of gets to the heart of it. Is like, this is for the glory of God,
right?
Like at the end of the day, this is about us getting ready for eternal life,
right?
Right. There's a beginning and an end to every game, and so there is in life, And I think sports coaching, it kind of gets you in that space of, there's something at stake here worth fighting for, worth caring about. But anyways, this has been great. I feel like we covered some good ground.
Yeah.
Some of the great reflections of our past have gotten a chance to be shared with the world.
Right. Yeah, we'll see what that does for us.
One last thing to do, very important part of this show. And did you bring your soil?
I did. My soil right here.
All right. So what kind of soil will you be putting in the jar here on the set?
Are you asking what type of soil?
Well,
I don't know. It's brown.
Where'd your soil come from? Why did you choose? Yeah, tell us about your soil. Why'd you choose it?
So I have two different kinds of soil here. One is from my house in Mobile, my parents' house in Mobile, where I was raised, and so that's the browner soil. And then I also got some soil from Holy Name of Jesus, where I'm the pastor of. This is my first place I was a pastor. I would have liked to get some soil from St. Bede in Montgomery. So maybe next time you're in Montgomery, you can just go by St. Bede and grab some soil for me. But that was my first assignment. So I learned so much as a priest or how to be a priest there. And then I have a rock from Hawaii that I got last time I was in Hawaii, which was a couple years ago. So that's where I was born. So all of those make up my jar.
Awesome. All right, what I'm going to have you do, I want you to put your soil in this jar.
Okay.
And one thing I love about your family story is just, it's one thing we reflect on native soils is how God will bring you to a certain place.
Right.
And like all the way from Hawaii to Mobile, it's just amazing to me the lengths that God went to bring y'all to Mobile. It's just very against the odds that y'all would wind up in Mobile. So I love that all this is represented in your jar. We've got Hawaii where it all started, and then this home you grew up in, learning the faith, and then now you're a priest, and this is where you're pastor. So it's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna have you sign it.
Okay.
Sign the top of it so we know whose soil this belongs to. Father Pat and I both have a big devotion to Saint Damien of Malachi, and very native soil kind of saint from Belgium, but gives himself completely to the lepers in Hawaii and becomes part of the fabric of that. So
yeah,
I feel like he'll be proud. He's part of our set, so he's somewhere around there. So this is very fitting. All right, I want you to hold this, and we're going to close. Just ask a blessing on Father Pat, his ministry, his life, and upon this soil, which represents where the Lord has brought him. So, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we love you and ask your blessing upon Father Pat. We thank you for his life. We thank you for his priesthood. We thank you for, in your providence, bringing his family here to Mobile, where they have become such a part of the church in so many different ways. We thank you for this gift of coaching that is such a big part of his life, his family's life. And we ask that you bless all the coaches, particularly that are listening right now. We ask that you bless Father Pat as he coaches people in the faith, upon his family, upon all those who are involved in this ministry. We ask your blessing upon this soil he holds in his hands, upon his life, upon the many ways in which you've called him to be rooted here in our native soil. Blessed Mother, we ask you to be with us all and show us how to use this gift of coaching to bring others to know more and more about your Son and the life that he's calling us to live. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. May God bless you, your soil, and all those listening, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless y'all. Look forward to having you back here on Native Soil.